So I was told I had 8 minutes, and then I was told I had 4. I'm not sure how that's going to work, but we'll keep it short. We'll try to keep it short. Let me just time myself so I know what's going on. 3 years ago, several clergy, about a dozen clergy, had an open time to meet with Ray Kelly in his massive offices there at One Police Plaza. And I was rather annoyed by my fellow clergy, the softballs they were lobbing at the commissioner. And at length I said to him, Commissioner, members of my church, members of my staff, I was then at the Riverside Church, are terrified to see your men in blue on the streets of this city. Just terrified. This degrades the whole social fabric. And he said, somebody's got to pay for safety in this city. Somebody's got to pay. Well, we got rid of him, but we did not get rid of police terrorism, right? So that's not exactly the solution. We're gathered here tonight partly to get concrete about what the call to stop police terror means, because just calling it all the time isn't going to stop it, is it? So we got to get concrete. Now look, between the call over here and violent revolution over here, we got to find exactly that point on the continuum where you can enter in and do something. And I'm going to talk to you now for a moment from the perspective of the great religious traditions. Because we're in a church, and I got a collar on, and I'm going to speak to that. Even though religion, God knows, has been complicit in all kinds of evils, especially in this nation, in many, many nations. All kinds of evils. We don't have to doubt that. All kinds of fantasies are in the minds of believers that lead them to believe and to do evil things. It happens. However, if you cut yourself off completely from the 5,000-year tradition of human wisdom, then you're out here all alone trying to invent it yourself. There are deep wells here, at sources that you can drink from. And many of you in the room know this. All of you, I think, know this in some way. So, let's take a look. One of the things that God says, according to the traditions, is that he hates brutality against the oppressed and the small and the weak and the vulnerable. I hate that. What's it mean if God hates that? Does that mean that we forgive and sit back and wait? I don't think so. Does it mean that vengeance is mine, saith the Lord, therefore we sit back and wait? I don't think so. Does it mean doom is coming? Sit back and wait for doom? I don't think so. No, I think there's only one thing we need to read into what God hates. God hates it. God hates it when people are shaken and refuse to wake up. God hates it when people are really shaken, and I don't mean by the hand of God in some magical way. You know what I'm talking about. Shaken, and the people refuse to wake up. The people of America have been refusing to wake up since the day the Cristobal Colombo bumped up on one of the islands, started here, and started killing the natives. We have always been asleep. Now, some people say slavery is the original sin of America. I don't think that goes deep enough. I really don't. No, the original sin is the human sin of desiring something so much that you say, I will have that. By any means necessary, I will get that thing I want. This infects humans. Of course it does. And if they are asleep and they feel a desire for something and they take it, oh, they'll do anything to keep that, to get that thing. This is what has driven all the rapacity that now gets named global capitalism and turns up on our shores daily as police terrorism. They're all connected. And yes, it may be as we know that the doom of global warming is coming, but you see these links. You don't need the fancy word intersectionality to prove to you what the links are among all these evils. They have to do with unregulated desire in the heart. And so, here comes the basis of a political program to stop police terrorism. It must always focus on waking people up. Always. Whatever it's being done. The gathering, which side are you on? Was there ever a call more clear as to how to wake up? I'm at 5:30. So we are always seeking that. I think, did you know that Lyndon Johnson initiated the Kerner Commission in July, 18 months before the end of his service as president? Mr. Obama is approximately at 18 months before the end of his service as president. Obama could establish a National Advisory Commission on Police Brutality now, and the word would come back, and it would help raise the consciousness of the people. Whatever actions we take, they must be focused on waking people, because that is the only thing God hates, is when people are sleeping and are shaken and they turn it off and say, go away, I don't want to wake. Let us ourselves wake. Thank you.
Our next speaker is also a grandmother. She's traveled all the way from Madison, Wisconsin, to be with us today to tell us of her experience. Her grandson, Tony Robinson's life was stolen less than 6 months ago. He was only 18, unarmed, and in his own home. The police officer who pushed his way into the apartment where Tony was not indicted. Today, we have his grandmother. I'm sorry, I'm trying not. We have his grandmother, Sharon, and his Aunt Lorian here with us today to speak to us and tell us their story.
Put him out front. This is my grandson. He was 19. He's young. He is black. And he is beautiful. And I am here to tell you that they took his life with 7 bullets. He shot him 3 times, dropped his flashlight, picked it up, shot him 3 more times, looked at him, and shot him again. My boy was unarmed, and nothing he did was deserved for that. And we suffer. I'm looking at all these people, and we're the human side of this. We suffer. I cry every day. I have to go through hundreds of pages of evidence because they didn't indict him. They said, no, he didn't do anything wrong. And I say to you, if you lie to justify your actions, are they justifiable? No. And he lied, and the Madison police lied, and the DA lied, and they disgraced my family. They made us not the victims, but the criminal. They made my grandson a criminal that he's not. And I'm telling you, I'm tired. And I'm not standing for this anymore. We are one people. We are the human race, but they are targeting black folks. I'm sorry. I get a little emotional. They are wrong. I feel this every day. My daughter feels this every day. All my grandchildren feel this day. And yes, I am from a rich and multicultural family. But like she said, what did she say?
I am unapologetically black. This is my mother. The reason why Rise Up October is so important is because there ain't enough room in this church for all of the names. The reason why Rise Up October is so important because in Madison, Wisconsin, we are the #1 worst place for minorities to live and the #3 happiest place in the country. We are the number one city in the entire country for minority youth incarceration. That means 18 and under. Our population of jail consists of 3/4 black children. Meanwhile, our population outside consists of 8% black people. The truths that they are providing to you are not truths at all. The reason why Rise Up October is so important is because I neglected the facts, and because of it, my nephew has paid. Because it could be any one of you. And if it makes you uncomfortable, I'm glad. It should. The blood of all of these people stains your hands the same way that it does mine. My nephew, yes, he was biracial. That means you, sir, it could be your nephew. Or you, it could be your grandchild. This is no longer polarized. This is no longer polarized.
We have, as a people, been taught to stay divided because they can control us easier. Hey, if we stood up, there's 7 billion of us. If we stood up, what could anybody do? It is time to wake up. It is time to see we are not different. We are a people with different cultures and different ways to live, but we are human. And it is time.
All power to the people.
Now, my point is this. Many folks with similar credentials have chosen a life of comfort, appeasement to the establishment, and the material rewards of celebrity, but not Brother West. He is a product of, and now a torchbearer of the black prophetic tradition. He fights for justice, and he stands with the people. And that's why he's loved. He's never sold out, and he's always been uncompromising. And that's why it is my great honor to introduce our brother, Dr. Cornel West.
Brother Nkosi Du Bois Anderson. Give it up, Brother Nkosi. Oh, yes, I'm blessed to have this brother as my head teaching assistant in my course on W.B. Du Bois. You all know W.B. Du Bois is the greatest public intellectual in the history of the American Empire. Give it up for Du Bois, because his spirit is here. Just like Sojourner Truth, just like Ida B. Wells, just like Marcus Garvey. And we don't have a language to describe the fire of Malcolm X, or Martin Luther King Jr. I'm not going to talk too long tonight because this is not a time for words. Words are too cheap when action is necessary. But I do want to salute this space, this consecrated space. I want to salute our dear brother Francois. Give it up for him. Give it up for him. Thank you so very much for allowing us in this consecrated space. Send my love and respect to brother and sister Warren. Because I'm here because I am who I am because somebody loved me. Somebody cared for me. Somebody attended to me. And when I see these precious faces and I look in their eyes and I take enough time to connect with their souls, and then I see the precious loved ones and the tears flowing, I say those tears are not in vain. Because we come from a people, we come from a tradition, a community who constitutes what the Isley brothers call a caravan of love. That's what it's all about. When you've been terrorized for 400 years, when you've been traumatized for 400 years, when you've been stigmatized for 400 years, but you still produce a John Coltrane who talks about love supreme. You still produce a Marvin Gaye who said, what's going on? Who cares for the children? Who really cares? When you produce a Nina Simone that can talk about what it means to be young, gifted, and black. When you produce a Donny Hathaway who can raise the question of someday we'll be free in the midst of so much terror, in the midst of so much trauma, in the midst of so much stigma, that allows you to take a stand. And that's what we're talking about in October, what it means to take a stand. Now, there used to be a brother on every fifth Sunday in my church, the Shiloh Baptist Church on the chocolate side of Sacramento, California. He'd show up and sit down on the organ. His name was Sylvester Stewart, but he's known to the world for the genius that he is, named Sly Stone. Y'all remember Sly Stone? And he wrote a song called Stand. You've been sitting much too long. There's a permanent crease in your right and wrong. Stand, there's a midget standing tall and the giant beside him about to fall. But then he got theological. He says, stand, there's a cross for you to bear. Things to go through if you going anywhere. That's where we are right now. The American empire is in decline, y'all. Capitalist civilization, market-driven, obsessed with narrow individualism, hedonism, narcissism, suffering from a spiritual malnutrition and a moral constipation. The coursing of the conscience and the hardening of the heart, a chilling of the soul, that callousness and indifference toward the suffering, especially the suffering of the vulnerable, of the children. How can we live in a society in which almost 45% of all of our precious children of color live in poverty in the richest nation in the history of the world? That's spiritually profane. That's morally obscene. That's spiritually sick. 22% of all of the children in America live in poverty. I don't care what color, each one equally precious. Something is wrong. That's a Keith Sweat moment. Something just ain't right. Brother Kevin, you know what I'm talking about. And we got these two giants here, Glenn Ford and Nellie Bailey. And we got a Black Agenda report. Oh, keep track of it and you get some deep truths of what it means to talk about empire. White supremacy sitting at the center of the American democratic experiment, and it was not the enslavement of black people that's the original sin. No, it was the stealing of the land of precious indigenous brothers and sisters. That makes it empire. That's an imperial project, a settler colonial project. We have to be able to straighten our backs up enough to do what? To tell the truth, and the condition of truth is to allow suffering to speak. And I come from a people, when I say people, I'm not talking about folk in the abstract. I'm talking about Cliff and Irene, my parents. I'm talking about what I learned in Vacation Bible School in Shiloh, that taught me to be a person of integrity and honesty and decency, and have the courage to straighten my back up and tell the truth, and to allow suffering to speak, but always put love at the center of it. Because if love is not at the center of it, it's just sounding brass and tinkling cymbal, and you discover that quickly. Because there's no way that all this suffering could be going on, all of this political murder and terror could be going on. The school system's producing soul murder every day. Gentrification of chocolate spaces with power grabs and land grabs. 1% of the population got 42% of the wealth and growing. Wages are stagnating for 40 years. Where's the outrage? If you really love folk, you hate the fact that they're being treated unjustly. You loathe the fact they're being treated unfairly. And if we don't do something, the rocks are going to cry out. Unless, and here's where the challenge begins, and this is what I love about Malcolm X. Malcolm said, my only credential is sincerity. He spoke the truth as he understood it. Doesn't mean he's right all the time, but you can rest be assured that just like a song by Aretha Franklin, what he has to say is for real. It's coming from his soul. It's coming from his gut. And in the last 35 years during the Ice Age, the neoliberal Ice Age, and by neoliberal, all I mean is financialize, privatize, militarize. You got a problem? Financialize. Bring in the big money in the banks. Privatize. Push out the public life. Push out public education. Push out the public conversation on corporate media. Just be concerned about the money. Money, money. Wu-Tang Clan say what? Cream. Cash rules everything around me, but it doesn't have to rule me. I can decide which side I'm going to be on. I can decide who I'm going to be in solidarity with. I can decide when I straighten my back up on the job, on the street, church, mosque, synagogue. If you're secular, if you're atheistic and agnostic, that's all right in terms of being able to still take a stand. I worked with a revolutionary communist for many, many years. I love him to death. His name is Carl Dix. I love that brother to death. I think he's wrong on the God question, but that's all right. I'm a Jesus-loving free black man. I'm a revolutionary Christian. He is a justice-loving free black man. He's a revolutionary communist. We overlap because we overlap in our love for these folk. Because we overlap with a love for poor people, working people, not just here, but all around the world. They could be peasants in Mexico. They could be wrestling with an ugly Israeli occupation that our Palestinians are. They could be dealing with tyranny in Ethiopia. They could be talking about how can I come to terms with my gay, lesbian, and trans identity in Canada. Doesn't make any difference. All of them got equal status in the eyes of the God that I serve. Same status, same significance. But the problem is that we live in the age of the sellout. Sellout preachers, sellout lawyers, sellout pharmacists, sellout professors, sellout civil rights leaders across the board. Everybody's for sale. All you got to do is offer some money, little power, little status, and next thing you know, they change their tune. No, no, love doesn't allow you to do that. Now, I'm the kind of Christian who, I love the sellouts as human beings, but I'm going to tell the truth about them. Because all of us got gangster proclivities. I was a gangster before I met Jesus, and now I'm a redeemed sinner with gangster proclivities. So y'all got to keep me honest, keep Carl Dix honest, keep all the parents honest. All of us have those proclivities when we get scared. But black people at our best hated people but taught the world so much about love. Treated unjustly but taught the world so much about justice. traumatized but taught the world so much about how to be cool. Black people at our best have been truth tellers, which means we've been cross bearers before we were flag wavers. And that's part of our challenge in the age of Obama, that once we got a black president, we got too many folk waving the flag and not enough folk wanting to bear the cross. So many folk concerned with the breakthrough at the top and losing sight of those stuck in the basement, those still catching hell, those wretched of the earth that the great Frantz Fanon talked about in the midst of the American empire. That's what Stop Mass Incarceration is all about. Black Agenda Report, y'all call it a mass incarceration state. Because black people, we moved from what? 244 years of not just slavery, but labor as a form of torture. It was against the law for black people to read or write. It's against the law for black people to worship God without white supervision. You see, that's more than a police state. And what do? We stole away at night and ring shouts and held hands and lifted our voices just like the national anthem called Lift Every Voice. And in lifting your voice, we decide not to be an echo, not to be a copy, but an original. Not to be an imitation, but to be creations and innovations, providing something new for the world. That's the tradition that we're talking about in Stop Mass Incarceration. But how do we do it? It's a spiritual question as well as a political one. And I'm going to end on this because, as I said, we don't need long speeches. But for black people, anytime we decide to straighten our backs up, to tell the truth, to bear witness, and be willing to live and die for something bigger than you. Anytime we decide to do that, the powers that be start shaking. We could call it the process of de-niggerizing black people. That's what it is. But when you keep a folk niggerized, they so afraid and scared and intimidated, walking around humpbacked all the time, not believing in themselves, not respecting themselves, not loving themselves at all. And when you don't love yourself, you don't love the people who look like you. You disrespect yourself, you disrespect folk that look like you. You become just a niggerized zombie, as it were, because you're giving up on your humanity. You believe the white supremacist hype that's been bombarding you through corporate media and through school and through all the other institutions. But lo and behold, when black people decide to become de-niggerized, to straighten up, quit laughing when it ain't funny, quit scratching when it don't itch, quit wearing the mask, be true to who God called you to be. And usually it takes about every 30 years, because when the black folk who do that, they either get murdered, they get shot down, they get lied on, they get scorned, they get rebuked. And the warriors are incarcerated. And what's left is just the milquetoast professionals who want to be successful. And I don't come from a tradition of a people. So much blood, sweat, and tears just to produce successful Negroes. I want to know what you're going to be faithful to. How you going to use your success? What kind of human being are you going to be given the material toys that you have? What they going to say at your funeral beyond the fact that you just had big mansions and a trophy spouse? What's the quality of your character? What kind of integrity, honesty, and decency did you really have? What courage did you manifest? How deep was your love? Did you organize and mobilize with others? Did you go down swinging like Muhammad Ali and Ella Fitzgerald and Duke Ellington and Sarah Vaughan and Gladys Knight and the Jones Girls and the Emotion? That's the question. That's why this movement connects the spiritual to the social, the personal to the political, the economic to the existential. We talk about the whole person undergoing transformation to become a freedom fighter and then be faithful unto death. Why? Because those who have already died, we're going to allow their afterlife to work through us. Because we're going to have Sankofa, which means we're not going to move forward until we first look back and remember the best of those who came before that constitutes wind at our back. That's what Stop Mass Incarceration is about. That's why I call it the love train. Get on the love train. Curtis Mayfield said you don't need no ticket. Just get on board. Get on board. Stop mass incarceration and decide which side you're really on and come with us. Not just October 24th, but decide to be a long distance runner like Mumia Abu Jamal and so many others all the way through. Stay strong, y'all. Thank you.